As was reported in today's newspaper, you would have seen that we had a meeting between the joint commissions, the Guyana-Brazil Joint Commission, dealing with some infrastructural projects, some very, very important projects with the potential of really making a major difference and in transforming our country in a fairly big way. And to note, the discussions, it was reported to me, went very, very well. Issues in relation to the hydropower studies that are being done with Brazil and the paving of the road from Linden to Lethem, those are the two, but there are many other projects that are being discussed. In the bilateral that they had with me, we were also examining the big prospects we have for investments in agriculture, in food production, and many other areas. And to show the seriousness in the Brazilian side, it was led by the governor of Roraima, who came here, Francisco Rodriguez, and also the vice president of the Brazilian Senate was here as well. Romero Juca was here as well. And so we had very, very good discussions. We also spoke about other things like air links, improving air links with our countries and beginning to, these are just preliminary stages, discussions on many of these things to see how we can increase contact, increase cooperation in the economic sphere, increase integration, accelerate the integration process, which will also be extremely good for CARICOM. So all of these are some of the discussion that we had, which I think went very well, and hopefully that these things will move very quickly, and I have no doubt that the Brazilians are serious, judging from the level of the people who've come here in that regard. I want to also talk a little bit about the anti-money laundering bill. You know that Guyana is facing a targeted review. After the last meeting that was held in Paris, it was decided that they will have a targeted review of our country. And then later on, I think we have to attend another meeting in Paris before the end of this year. This means that and that's largely because we have not passed the anti-money laundering bill. And it means that the opposition continues its determination to put the people of our countries in harm's way, to damage the welfare of our people. I spoke about our efforts to get the bill passed and the refusal of the opposition members on the committee to meet before the parliamentary recess, and even during the recess, attempts were made to, approaches were made for them to meet to try to narrow any kind of position so that we can come up with a CFATF and FATF compliant bill. But that, of course, those efforts were rejected. The chairperson of the committee, the Special Select Committee, Ms. Gail Teixeira, recently sent invitations out to have a meeting of the committee on October 10th. That's immediately at the beginning of the new parliamentary session. And there again, there was absolutely no response from the opposition members. And they seem very, very determined to get the country blacklisted, and which is a very, I would say, a very unpatriotic position to take. In the meantime, we are putting in place all the measures that do not require legislation. We have developed a work plan taking into account the unpredictable role, or should I say predictable role, of the Parliament, or the obstructionist role that they are playing, particularly in this regard. In carrying out this plan, we have issued guidelines and are developing regulations to deal administratively with many of the matters which we could not get passed by the bill. We have moved to establish the operation arm of the FIU, the SOCU. A building has already been identified. I think Dr. Luncheon probably mentioned this in the previous press conference, and we are in the process of recruiting staff for this body. I would like to take the opportunity to express publicly my thanks and the government thanks to the work of the British, the Canadian, and the US governments for the great support that they have been giving, and they have given and giving in relation to establishing these institutions and keeping us at the international standards as far as our financial sector is concerned. We, as you will see, we are working very, very hard to stave off any blacklisting and saving our people from unnecessary hardship. That is what we are working extremely hard to do, because as well, we will face these review coming up soon, and we hope that we will be able to avoid blacklisting. Let me also touch quickly on the cleanup campaign. As you're aware, the cleanup campaign of our country is a major priority for the government. In addition to the money in the budget that went to the RDCs and the NDCs, we have had a special amount put aside, $1 billion to clean up the country as a whole. Work in Georgetown has picked up considerably, and many areas are beginning to look far better than before this campaign started. 7 main canals are at the moment of being in the city are being desilted. Hopefully, that will reduce the incidence of flooding during the rainy period in our country. There also has to be a lot of work, of course, in the internal drains and so forth, so that the water could get to the main canals. But we are working strongly on that at this point in time. The rest of the country also, we are going to roll out our activities. You can expect to see a lot more activities beginning almost immediately, and looking at giving them more equipment and so forth to be able to, in all the municipalities and NDCs, so that we can deal with this problem. We are procuring equipment for these bodies. Important is the maintenance of the conditions when we would have gotten back our country in a pristine state. And that is also very important, and one of the things we are doing is trying to involve the communities in this regard, so that we can maintain the position and to have everybody involved, because we will all see the benefits. Of course, there are health benefits, there's economic benefits, because that will add to our tourism. I know when people talk about tourism in Guyana, a lot of people think about the tourism product in the interior, but Georgetown itself is a very beautiful city. The coastal area, they have some very beautiful areas to visit, and with enhanced by its condition, we can enhance a lot more to economic activity in these areas as well. In agriculture, one of the big issues we are looking at is its market for the rice. You know, production has gone up considerably over the last few years. When I last spoke to you, I told you that we were dispatching a team to Panama to follow up on the meeting that I had with the president of Panama in relation to markets for rice. Well, that was a successful trip, and that it was already reported in the media. But we're looking at other markets as well, so that we can continue to stimulate the production in this area. And as far as I'm told, that we are very optimistic that we will be able to find more markets to deal with the increased production that we have at this point in time. We are also looking at the non-traditional crops to export more. There are some good possibilities emerging there as well. And as I had mentioned on many occasions, that we want to apply more and more science and technology into agriculture. On Monday, we will be opening a new lab in the agricultural sector. This is the new tissue culture lab, which will help farmers to have access to disease-free planting materials. And here we are introducing really cutting-edge technologies in agriculture. And you will recall only a few weeks ago that we had opened another very modern lab in relation to animal health at Monrepo as well. In the water sector, at the moment we are going to build new water treatment plants in regions 3, 4, 6, and 10. When these are completed, more than 60% of the population will have had access to treated water. And this is a major achievement for a developing country like ours and put us way ahead of the Millennium Development Goals that we have been working with, that has been set internationally at the beginning of the century, or just before the beginning, just at the close of the last millennium. So we are doing well here. Must also note that our tourism sector has picked up. We have with more and more arrivals in our country, with more flights that we're having. We're having a flight from Venezuela every week that is coming fairly full. We have the Copa Airlines and giving Guyanese far more access, more direct routes to Europe, to South America, to other parts of North America and so forth. And that seems to be contributing in a big way to arrivals, more and more arrivals in our country. And we are seeing more hotels are being built, more resorts on the riversides and so forth are being built at this point in time, which testifies to the growing amount of tourism that is, and the importance, the growing role of tourism in our economy. Also, what is interesting to note too is we have a new aviation company coming on stream. All of that is being stimulated because of the growth in the tourism sector. So those are some of the things that are doing well. I want to also report that I had consultation with the leader of the opposition, and during next week we hope that we will be swearing in the commissions, the Police Service Commission, the Public Service Commission, the Teachers Service Commissions. These commissions we're working on, and hopefully by next week we will have that out of the way. I must also say again, the Parliament has been holding up a lot of the bodies, the rights bodies, and the rights of the child bodies to be established, the bodies, the rights of women. Also, many of these other rights bodies are still to be passed by the National Assembly. So that is, I think, a major development, and that will probably clear out a lot of the bottlenecks that had developed in some of these areas in the past. So we're moving very, very quickly on these matters. So I wanted to bring you up to speed with some of the things that have been happening in the society. There are other things that I can speak about, but I suspect it will come out in the questions, so I will start giving you an opportunity to ask the questions at this point in time.
Berlin and see.
I wanted to talk a little about the Georgetown in terms of sustainability. What's happening at City Hall? There seem to be, City Hall seem to be stuck in cost out mode, more or less, not really doing anything. How confident are you that this cleanup of Georgetown will be sustained after the program?
Well, you notice a lot of involvement of the communities in this cleanup campaign. So because of that, I'm heartened by the fact that there's a good response from the various communities in the cleanup exercise. As far as the City Council is concerned, I really think that, there really needs to be much more maturity. We have gone through these things already in the past. What is happening there is nothing new. Some of these things have been pronounced on already, but I think it's just a general pattern of being obstructionist, part of the opposition, in order to try to very clearly there seems to be no interest on the side of the opposition, regardless of which branch of government they're operating in, to try to see any kind of progress taking place in these areas. So hopefully, as I said at one time, I hope maturity will prevail, but I think probably I am too optimistic in that regard, it appears to be, because the old saying that a leopard cannot change his spot seems to be true in this case as well. Yes.
With regards to the
you said you recently met with the opposition leader. Any discussions as to compromise with regards to
that wasn't a subject that we discussed. We were more concentrated on these commissions to get them out of the way. Yeah.
Mostly near source. Mr. President, the elections. The possibility of the government calling these elections before the opposition moves in with the no confidence vote later on. Are you still thinking about that? And if so, when can we see a move in that direction?
My answer to that hasn't changed from the last time. I still have time to deal with this issue. This matter comes up in October. Politics, as you know, a day or a week in politics is sometimes a long time. So I wouldn't make a decision prematurely.
And sir, we've heard Mr. Rohi, your General Secretary of the PPP, and we've heard Dr. Luncheon also talk about a national alliance and the PPP Civic wanting to work with other people. Have you been looking at specific groups, political or otherwise, that you might want to team up with if you're going to be heading into these elections when they come soon?
Well, these are things that are constantly under review. We never stop doing these things. We have always had an open door to these matters. You know, from the moment the PPP was split in 1955, we have constantly been working to bringing people together, to working together. But unfortunately, some people pay lip service to this whole question of joint governance and so forth, because how do you want to have joint governance and we can't pass the anti-money laundering bill? What kind of government will that be? Will that be a government that's designed to stall development, stall progress in the country? You can't pass, you can't get an important project. Everyone knows that probably the biggest limiting factor to faster economic growth in our society is the issue of cheap power, cheap energy, and we can't get the support from the opposition, even though they have it in their manifesto, by the way, our cheap energy and hydropower, that they are opposing it at this point in time, which shows that they understand the importance, but their objective is mainly to damage Guyana more than anything else.
You're leading a minority government.
I am not leading a minority government. There's a minority
in place, a government in the parliament?
We don't have a minority government here.
Okay, sir. Well, tell me, do you think your party will be able to get the majority should we head to snap elections or early elections as a result of the no confidence vote?
I am sure that whenever elections are held, whether it be held tomorrow, whether it be held next week, whether it be held next year, whether it be held in 2016, that the PPP will regain its majority in the National Assembly.
You think so?
I'm confident, very confident of that. I have no doubt in my mind about that.
Mr. President, I want to take you back to the issue of elections and GCOM's readiness. The PPP would have raised the issue of 18 names, questionable names on the list, and recently we saw pictures being circulated with regards to the late Arthur Chung on that list. Do you think GCOM is ready for elections at this point?
Well, that's a big judgment to make, but I do know that there are issues with the list. I do know that there are issues with the list, because if the list is based on a house-to-house registration in 2008, that was done in 2008, how is it that these people who died before 2008, that there are people who died before 2008 appearing on the list? These are things of concern. These are some of the things that must concern us, that there's quite a bit of people, I understand from the reports that I've been having from our party workers in the field, that they're finding people who died before the house registration took place, and you're finding those people's names on the list. I haven't seen a proper explanation for that as yet, because I heard one of the saying that maybe Arthur Chung wasn't reported to the Elections Commission by the registrar's office that he died, and that's why his name is still on the list. But that doesn't explain to me, if the list is based on the house registration in 28, how people's names who died before that are appearing on the list. That's the issue that is of concern. Yeah. Yes?
Just two questions. You talked about Amila. Can we get an update on the projects, given the National Assembly's position on these projects and the fact that funds were voted down for Amila, the Specialty Hospital, CGIA? Yet we still have contracts for these projects.
We are working on the Amila issue. We're working very hard to bring it back on stream. We've lost a couple of years, there's no doubt, but we're still working to bring it on stream. We are very close to taking a decision about what direction do we go to put back Amila on stream. So far, the IDB seems to be very much still on board in working with us to get this project moving. So the project is still not dead. The other important areas where funds were cut, like the hospital, the airport, and so forth, where contracts were already signed. Well, you've seen and you know about this issue, that we have been restoring the funds to those areas, as we have been restoring them to the University of Guyana student loans. We have had to even increase that so that our students would not suffer. The Amerindian Development Fund that was cut, we're restoring those things so that the Amerindian people will not suffer because of many of these cuts. So we're restoring these things so that these projects that will make major impact on the lives of the people of Guyana and help in the whole quality of life, that they will continue.
My last question, you addressed the issue of the trouble at City Hall and the fact that their focus is not really on what's important, but on the issues with Suba and whatnot. The suggestion for an IMC was rejected by the opposition leader today at this press conference. What is your position on on putting an IMC in place?
You know, that has been on the agenda for quite a long time, but I haven't decided as yet. I'm still thinking about it at this point. I don't know if the question we're running up to it or election. There are many considerations that we could look at that I think that we need to give some more consideration to. But I think what is desperately needed is a recognition that the people who are suffering are the ordinary people in the country, and they need a change of attitude to work so that we can bring back Georgetown to reestablish its reputation and its prestige that it so proudly held in the Caribbean in the past. Yeah.
Mr. President, sir, back to elections. Is the government considering seeking a legal opinion or a judicial review of the proposed no confidence motion? And secondly, is there a chance that someone can possibly move to the court to challenge the authenticity of the list as it stands? That's the preliminary voters list or the official list of electors whenever that is formulated? I am not a lawyer to say if it's possible for anyone to challenge the list. I suspect that there are possibilities for all of these things. If some people sometimes feel that they're not, that they're being disenfranchised, I suspect that they might look at those type of options. But I am not the expert to really pronounce on these things. I have to know about them because of what I do, but I am not the biggest expert on the legal aspects of things. As far as the
the no confidence motion is concerned, I mentioned already that I still have time to deal with that. We're always discussing these things. These things are never off the table. These things are always things that are constantly being discussed from time to time. So we're discussing everything, but when I will make my decision, I will do that.
And when you say everything, you include considering seeking a judicial review of or an opinion?
If those suggestions come up, of course they will be discussed. We will not be ruling anything out nor anything in. We will, you know.
So far it's not come up. That element has so far come up?
No, nothing like that has come up as yet.
And thirdly, sir, what efforts has the Defense Board taken with respect to having those guns that have been reportedly missing or not returned by certain members of the PNC administration, as has been said at the Commission of Inquiry?
Since the revelation, the Defense Board hasn't met, but I could say this, that when those weapons were given to the PNC, the present leader of the PNC was the commander of the army at the time. And now that he is the leader of the PNC, I will expect that he will make some genuine effort to return the weapons that were given to the PNC to give them back to the army. You have to go back and study your history. The Ministry of National Development was inseparable from the PNC. It was the office of the General Secretary of the PNC at that time as well. So it was given to the PNC, and now that the commander in the army is now head of the PNC, I hope he will take some steps to return the weapons to the army at this point. But I would like to speak a little bit more about it too, because it is very, very clear. It's not only the 155 weapons that are out there, but also the ones that have been missing the ones that have been missing more recently during the crime spree, the 31 AK-47 that went missing. But this is a lot of weapons that are out there at this point in time. And this is these weapons have found themselves in the hands of criminals. Already you've seen from that bunch that was given to the PNC that some were found in the hands of criminals when you had the shootout in Mahaika or Maikoni during the crime spree. And it is also opposite to note that when the 5 escapees made their break, they didn't break and enter into any armory, yet they were very, very well equipped with weapons and so forth. And we have been talking a long time about the links of the opposition to crime very often. We have said that the situation in Buxton would have never lasted so long had there not been some political support for them in that area. And clearly, we see that these are some of the things that we have to fight against today. What has happened then is impacting on us today as far as crime is concerned, and that is one of the things that we are continuously have to fight against the crime situation. So it is clear, very, very clear that, and now it's been very open coming out from the Commission with evidence that these weapons were given to the PNC, and they have found themselves into the criminal community. They have a responsibility of getting back those weapons. The leader of the opposition likes to talk about commissions of inquiry for everything else other than those things that are very important to the country.
President, to follow up, you said that the Defense Board has not discussed this matter and has not met since this disclosure, but certainly, according to Colonel James at the inquiry, the report on the weapons after the 2 were found at Maikoni in the hands of the criminals was done several years ago. Hence, my question still stands: what efforts has the Defense Board taken to ensure that the guns are retrieved from the persons to whom they were assigned?
The law enforcement agencies continuously will try to recruit, to recoup those weapons. Whatever weapon, not only, and I'm not speaking only about those weapons, but all the illegal weapons on the road, all the illegal weapons in the society, all the weapons in the hands of criminals. It is the task of the law enforcement agencies to continue work to try to get them back. Yeah.
Mr. President, but don't you think, sir, as Commander-in-Chief, you ultimately have the responsibility to get these weapons back? I think you have Major General Joe Singh.
Of course, I don't have a problem with that, and that is why I'm telling you that this is one of the important functions of the security forces, to get the weapons back.
Directed them.
Of course, that this is a standing order to get the weapons back and bring it
From
back.
1979?
From whatever time there is there. All you can get them, you have to get them back.
Anyone penalized for not doing so?
From here?
Has anyone been penalized in
Not in my time. Not in this period of time. I can't answer for before. If there were any disciplinary action taken on anyone else.
Government, two former heads of the army, Major General Singh, Joe Singh, and Mr. Attlee, and they would have both been in the army at that time. Have you sought to question them?
So you mean with them?
You sought to question them about?
I think Mr. Joe Singh was in the national service at that time. As far as I know, yeah, but I don't know. You speaking me, you tell me that he was in the army at that time. I am telling you that I think he was in the national service at that time. I don't know that he was in the and I don't know that he has any more information on those weapons that are now out there in the open. Or I don't know about Mr. Attlee either. I know that when some of the weapons were missing, that some of the present-day activists in the PNC, one was heading the army and one was heading the police force. So maybe they can help now that we know where the weapons went, that where they can get it back to us.
These weapons have been missing, sir, for or have not been returned for 35 years.
Yes.
If my math is right. Your government has been in power for 22 of those 35 years. Do you think you have been making enough effort as a government to get those weapons back, and why have you failed?
We have been making a lot of efforts to get the weapons back, but maybe part of the reason that we have not totally succeeded is what I've just said. Who was heading the army and the police for a period of time, and where are they now? Where are they? But we can see what efforts they were making. Yes.
With regards to this general COI relations, your views.
The what?
The Rodney Commission inquiry. Your general views.
I think it's extremely useful. It's bringing out a lot of information to Guyanese people. Some of this information people had suspected. Some wasn't known to many people. And I think they are probably getting very, very much closer to the truth of what took place in that period of time. Yeah.
President Gisela Archibald Hawk, NCN. You mentioned bilateral talks with Brazil. How concerned are you with the amount of attacks on foreign investment?
Yeah, that's a major concern, I would say. And I would say not only on foreign investment, but on investors everywhere in our society. And most of the stories that are out there are absolutely false stories. There's a story today in the front page headlines of the Kaichur News that is also totally and absolutely false, that some 60,000 hectares of land was given to a company. That is not true. And I understand from the Forestry Commission, from the Ministry of Natural Resources, that their attempt to answer these things are not being published by the same papers. All of this talk about, I don't think press freedom means the freedom to distort, to try to slander. Obviously, all of these things are just aimed at slandering the government, aimed at trying to chase away investors. Many are just seen in the paper too, was it today or yesterday? Antigua going to get some investment funds in their country to develop their own infrastructure taking place. But we seem here to want to be chasing investors from our country, and by trying to create the impression about corruption when all of the information is totally false, as the headline today in the Kaichur News about 60,000 hectares being given to a company. And as I said, there are many, many other distortions that have been taking place. I know that the Guyana Forestry Commission sent a response to the erroneous position that was held by putting up by Vulcan, Palmer, Ram, the Transparency International, etc. And it is not being published by the very paper. Now, and even sometimes when they get an opportunity to be published, they're heavily edited or not given any prominence into the press. So what we see clearly, this is a blatant and shameless attempt to slander and to distort what is taking place in our country. And yes, I'm very concerned about the on the attack on investments generally, not only foreign investments, but investors generally within our society. Yeah. Anything else? If not.
Yeah. This morning, Mr. Granger said that in your party's manifesto, he said you wrote, and I quote, "In the area of local government and governance, the next PPP government will ensure within 1 year of 2011 general elections."
Myself, you know.
That local government elections are held. He said that you have failed to do this in 3 years, and so you have failed in your promise. How would you respond to this?
I said that myself, that when I was campaigning for the presidency, and after that, I had promised to hold local government elections very, very quickly. But I also said that because of the uncertainty that developed in the body politics of the society, that is what prevented me. And it is very strange that they will place a no confidence motion in the National Assembly and still be talking about local government elections. You know, we got to make up our minds what actually we want. I'm ready for both. I'm ready to contest any kind of elections in our society.